So welcome to this press conference following the Agriculture Council. And as promised, I will brief anyone who would like on the fishery points afterwards. With me, I have Danish Minister Jacob Jensen and Commissioner Christophe Hansen, who are both ready to take your questions. But first, we'll go for statements. So please, Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stine, and welcome all. I think this morning we had a very good, long but very good discussion on the Commission's proposal for the Common Agricultural Policy after 2027. And this time we have focused on food security and also targeting of support. We have tried from the Danish presidency to make themes at each meeting so we can get into more details and get the Commission's comment and reflections on each theme, and we did that also this time. Next time we will have, in December meeting, we will have discussions on simplification and innovation for the theme there, and then we will continue afterwards, of course, with the Cyprus presidency. The ministers, they agreed that we must focus on food security when we target support. What that means in practice differs a lot, though, between the member states, and I think also you have to take into consideration the various size and structure in the agricultural sector from one member state to the other. While some member states welcomed the Commission's focus on smaller farms, others they noted the importance of larger farms for food security. And I believe the debate showed that we need a certain amount of flexibility to find a solution that work in all member states across Europe, but at the same time we still also have, as the Commissioner actually said during the meeting, to keep in mind that there is a C in the common agricultural policy. When it comes to trade, the vast majority of member states reconfirmed that trade in agricultural products is a very, very important way also to support our friends in Ukraine against the Russian aggression on China. A number of member states also highlighted the challenges posed by the Chinese measures against European pork and dairy production. We also had we will have a very good discussion, hopefully in the afternoon, when it comes to fisheries. But as Stine mentioned, we will get back to that later on in the evening. But on the agricultural part, I think we had a very good discussion on these topics. So far, so good.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Danish presidency for a few items that were not on the agenda, but that we dealt with last week. We delivered on the simplification package and as well on the Unfair Trading Practices Directive with specifically on the cross-border aspects on that. So I think that was very important that we could close this, because this means as well simplification as from the next year for our farming sector. And when we say simplification, that means as well more time to work on the fields, more time to work with the animals, and being more productive by that as well. It was also important to discuss today the clarification around the MFF and the CAP proposals that have been presented by Commission President von der Leyen last week. So the meeting between President of the European Parliament, the Presidency and President von der Leyen clarified and strengthened as well our objectives in three key areas on the target for rural areas, the spending target for rural areas. I think that was very important to show and to address the concerns that some have of a perceived loss of part of the second pillar. It was also about the second point of the letter is the preservation of the coherence and of the well-established competences on the common agriculture policy, but as well ensuring the appropriate involvement and role of the regions in the process for the future. So we have listened to the discussions and the concerns to clear as well the path forward. And we now have a solid base to continue the work to shape the future of the CAP and the MFF together. And I welcome the presidency approach as well of focusing on one angle of the CAP proposal at very council, and we know that negotiations are lengthy, so taking the time to clarifying important points is welcome and very necessary as well. And better targeting is at the centre of our proposal, and it was as well a direct call by the conclusions of the strategic dialogue, but as well on the vision for the future of agriculture. So just a few figures to point out the importance of this discussion. So family farms have an average income per worker 47% lower than that on other farms. Farmers in areas with natural constraints have an average farm income per worker 26% lower than the average income of farmers in other areas. And these are just a few examples to highlight the need to target the support better where it is as well most needed. And food security is much more than the simple availability of food. It is also about the protection of our farming model, and as well including the diversity of the farms that we have on our European continent. It is as well about that food production needs to be maintained across the entire EU territory in all its regions. And in this respect, the CAP proposal strengthens both the long-term food production as well as the diversity and the sustainability of the production. And we know that farms tend to merge and increase in size, which is also good for the markets, of course. But studies show that the CAP has been a major force in slowing down this development by keeping small farms in business, also because they are important for the socio-economic reasons. And because it is important to prevent land abandonment, and because they provide public goods in terms of nature and landscape preservation, for instance, in mountain regions, but as well in certain more remote regions where without agriculture there would of course be as well the land abandonment and as well, for example, the risk of wildfire. So there is many of these elements are very important that we maintain the production in all our regions. And then we of course also discussed trade issues and the state of play on our agri-food trade flows. The agri-food sector remains a very strong exporter, and we need to build up on our strength and see trade as an opportunity as well. And in that regard, I updated as well the ministers about my latest high-level mission that I went when I went to Brazil with around 80 European agri-food producers from 19 different member states. And I have to say that was a very successful mission, not only for the B2B meetings, but as well on opening the political level and get better access via pre-listing of certain sectors to Brazil. And we all, of course, all agree on the need to always include very strong safeguards in our agreements to protect as well our most sensitive agriculture sectors. And you can see that this is the approach followed by the Commission. So the recent updated deals with Ukraine and Moldova are prime examples of this, but also, of course, the unprecedented safeguards for the Mercosur agreement. And in that regard, our free trade agreements provide the best frame of action to open access to markets, protect our farmers, and promote our production standards. So I had two very interesting discussions today, and the rest of the day will, of course, be covered by my colleagues on doing fisheries and santé, so Commissioner Cadiz and Vareli.
Just a small remark. First of all, I'd like to say and give my appreciation for the Commission's work done when it comes to a various range of free trade agreements and also negotiations. We have a region with a surplus of exports of agri-foods. I think it was last year plus 60 billion euros. So it is very, very important that we continue this work, and we will support it, of course, with all the necessity that the Commission also mentioned. And also appreciation on the cooperation that we had last week, where the presidency could finalize the omnibus package on simplification. That is something that many people have talked about for many, many years. Now we can see that we can deliver, and I think that's very, very positive, also seen from a farmer's point of view.
And with that, let's open the floor for questions. Please state your name and media. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Alice Bergouin for Euractiv. I have 3 short questions for Commissioner Hansen. The first one is, so we have seen that the changes proposed to the budget proposed by the Commission were considered not enough by many agriculture ministers. So I'm wondering, do you have any other cards up your sleeves to try to convince them? Second question is on degressivity and capping. I'm wondering what's your answers to the concern that the degressivity and capping proposal do not respect the diversity of the size of farms in EU member states. And the last one, simply, what is your view on taxing fruit products? Thank you.
Thank you very much for these 3 questions. On the changes that have been proposed, there were indeed many ministers that acknowledge as well the progress that we have made. I think that was a very first step, but I also mentioned this is the beginning of a longer discussion with both co-legislators, and so this will take us about the next 2 years, and it is as well partly in the hand, of course, of the co-legislators to come up with their proposals. So I think this was important to clarify already on certain parts. As I said, there is a perceived loss of part of the second pillar, even though that the tools are still all there. They are, of course, now not such separately, but I think it is as well important to say that currently, and we spoke earlier about the big C of the common agriculture policy, we have very diverse situations in the different member states with different parts of the budget in the first or the second pillar, and this is as well not, let's say, as easy as it is. So I think we need to bridge, of course, the fears that are still there. I this morning had as well the impression that there was a little bit an ask for more flexibility for the member states to take the territorial differences into account, but still they are afraid of that the sea could be smaller. I think there is a fear there, and this needs to be addressed in the discussion. So there is, I believe, not another card to be played now. And now it will as well be for the UCO to discuss for the first time, and from there we will take it then with the co-legislators. On your second question on the degressivity and the capping, I think it's very important to say that the capping will only touch 4% of the recipients of the common agriculture policy. 96% will not be touched about that. So I think that is a very important figure to say. It is also important to say that this money will remain in the concerned member states where the capping and the degressivity will take place. So this can be used, for example, for investment. This can be used, for example, for agro-environmental measures, can be used as well for the coupled support. And so eventually it goes back to those where it has been taken away, but nonetheless it will go to the ones actually producing. And I think that is very important, that the money gets to the producer and not only to the landowner, because there we have problems, and I think these problems need to be addressed. So again, the money stays in the member state, and I think that is very important, that it is then better used, for example, for young farmers, for example, for female farmers, and in areas with natural constraints. So that is coherent with what the objective is, that we have the money going to those most at need, and going to those who are actively contributing to the food security. And then on your third question on taxation of food, well, it goes into different directions. Of course, the ideas that are circulating, some are pledging for a tax on ultra-processed foods. Others are saying organic should be exempted from VAT. So this is something where we need to discuss in a broader perspective. But I think it is very important as well that we keep in mind the affordability of food to our consumers, and that should be our guiding principle.
Okay, so can we have one more question or three, since that sometimes happens? Yes, sure, here on the first row. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Tetiana Vysotska, European Pravda, Ukraine. And my question will be about Ukraine, about the discussion on new trade agreement with Ukraine. Are you both satisfied with this discussion? Because, as I know, some countries are not happy with this agreement. And three countries, Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland, they still, as I'm aware, have bilateral bans on some agricultural products for Ukraine. How the Commission and how the Presidency is going to deal with these countries and with other countries who are having some questions about the agreement. How do you show that the agreement is good and doesn't need any other measures? Thank you.
Well, if I should start, I'm very happy that we managed to make the agreement. I think we talked about that last time. It's very important that we have stability in the relationship, that we at the same time also work together with our friends in Ukraine in order to implement the Ukrainian agri-food sector even closer to the EU market along the way. And one day will be full membership of the EU as we see it. And I fully acknowledge that there are some countries in the EU that are worried about what will happen and how can we deal with that. You just have to remember back in 2002 where we had the latest discussion actually during the Danish presidency back then, where we had an enlargement with 10 new member states. We had the same discussion, also worried about what will happen, and I think it was a success after all. So I think that is the way that we see that we should work together with our friends in Ukraine to implement and also get up to standards together with Ukraine and EU. And I think also it's worth mentioning that we actually, both Ukrainian and EU, have trade. It's not only going one way, it's also going the other way into the EU, and we also benefit from that as a region. So that's how we see it.
Yes, of course, there was nothing surprising today in that discussion on Ukraine. You have the one voices and the others, and they are well known. But I think what we delivered with the agreement is as well to give stability to our operators in the agri-food sector because, of course, due to the ATMs, which were necessary as a solidarity measure, there were some disturbances, but they have been addressed as well. And it's always how you read the figures. We have gone up from the old DCFTA TRQs, of course, but we have gone as well down significantly or even more significantly from the peaks in the autonomous trade measures. And now we have stability because we need as well to know that we are as well on certain goods produced by Ukraine dependent on the import. And I think that is very important to say. I also underlined the importance that this agreement is as well linked to the alignment on the production standards by 2028, which is anyway the homework that Ukraine needs to do on the path to join the European Union, and I think that is very important to underline. Then, and the Minister said it very rightly, trade goes in both directions, and especially the member states that you have mentioned, they have as well huge opportunities as well because they are former markets were partly, for example, Russia, where they are not delivering now anymore. But when you go to Poland or to Hungary and you see as well, let's say, the dairy production, the dairy products, the sausage production and other manufactured products are exported, and we have full liberalization for them. And there is a huge opportunity as well for agri-food producers. And of course, I believe we have as well the necessary safeguards included for the more sensitive sectors.
Sorry, can we wait until at the end because we are a little bit in a time need here. So can I move on here? Thank you.
Hi, Arthur Mamas from Context. Thank you for this press conference. I have two questions. The first one is for the Commissioner. It's about the trade agreement with the Mercosur. The French minister considers that in order to support the ratification of the deal, it still needs to have several improvements, such as on more clarifications on the safeguard clauses, the creation of an European independent body to have better controls of imports and also reciprocity clauses. Do you plan to answer to these concerns, or do you consider that you already have the majority necessary to ratify the agreement? And then a question for both the Minister and the Commissioner. It's about the next omnibus package on food safety. When do you expect to, first of all, do you expect to present this new package? And do you think that it would be a good idea to modify some key elements of the European legislation on pesticides, such as the procedure to request the authorization? Thank you.
Do you want to start on the
maybe
one?
I start on the Mercosur, and then I give over to the Minister. So, of course, the trade agreement of Mercosur, I think it is very important to remind as well about the opportunities once again, because 3 weeks ago I have been, and I mentioned it with the ministers as well, I have been with almost 80 European agri-food producers to Brazil. Many of them were French, from the dairy sector, from the wines and spirits sectors, and so on. So they are as well pretty much looking into the opportunities. And if you are from France, you know as well that the wine sector is heavily under pressure. The wine growers have been out in the streets last week, and this is a potential huge market. 200, just Brazil. I don't speak about the others because the delegation didn't go there, but it is as well 220 million potential consumers, with a large growing population that is having as well the means to afford this. So this is as well to be seen there as well. Then on the reciprocity aspects, as you know, my colleague Oliver Varelli is as well working on the food and feed omnibus, where I believe there will be elements in that go into that direction on the request, because the vision for the future of agriculture said as well clearly that it is not coherent if we are banning plant protection products in the European Union, that they are coming in by another production from outside the European Union. This doesn't make sense for if a product is bad for human health, if it is bad for biodiversity in the EU, it is as well outside the EU. So we are heavily working on that. And then, of course, I think we have as well to be coherent a little bit, because we are willing to export, and we need to export. We are exporting 70 billion more than we are importing annually, and I believe there we need as well to make sure that these exports can actually happen. So I think it is very important not to add layers. We have a safeguard clause that is in the making, and that will be efficient to address the problems. But I think that is very clear. If the imports in a certain sector is, for example, going up by 10%, and the price of the product is going down by 10%, even if it's one single member state, this safeguard clause will bite, and I think that is very important to remember. And this, the 10%, that is less than usual fluctuations of the prices in the market.
Well, if I can just briefly add, I'll look forward, of course, to see the package, the omnibus package, also when it comes to food safety. But I'll also underline that I believe that the reason why we can actually export that much out of the EU region is also because we have a high food safety standards, and that is something that is also requested by the export markets. So we need to live up to that. We need also to work having even higher food safety standards along the way. But in that case, we also need to have, when we abandon some plant protection products, we also need to have a faster application process for alternatives, as I see it. So the more we can work with this and be innovative also when it comes to production and have less footprint on the environmental issues, then the better it is also when it comes to the export for third countries.
We'll do one last question. Yes, sure, in the back. I think Politico is, yeah.
Hi there, Lucia from Politico. I just wanted to ask, the proposal for capping and degressivity received quite a lot of criticism from ministers during the conversation earlier. And I know you've already mentioned it, but I wanted to ask if this proposal doesn't end up being mandatory, ends up being voluntary or cut back in some major way, what impact does that have on the overall CAP equation, Commissioner? Can the various objectives of the CAP be met without the money from capping and degressivity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, indeed, as you mentioned, the question had already been asked before, but I believe we have to see, of course, what amount of money will finally be in the pot once the co-legislators will have agreed on that, and this will then make things very clear. But as I said earlier on, if we really want better to support, for example, the young farmers, and if we would have the same amount of money from somewhere, it has to come. And I think, therefore, it is very important. We had already, during the last reform, the capping and the degressivity on the table. It has not become mandatory. Some member states are doing it. But nonetheless, then it doesn't bring the effect. And I think it is as well counterproductive when we say, when we speak about this, that it is, we are speaking about 4% of the EU farms that potentially would get a little bit less on one part, just on the degressivity part, but because they get the money still on the agri-environmental measures. So if you have a farm of 10,000 hectares and are visited, some of them, you can do those measures on the 10,000 hectares for the agri-environmental measures, and you eventually, if you are doing a practice that is beneficial for the environment in that sense, you can get that money back, but you need to do that effort as well. And I think that is very important. We have as well the coupled support, so the money can be vehicleized back, but this is not to harm a big or small farmer. It is, again, to get the money where the producer stands, where the guy or the lady with the boots stands on the ground, in the mud, and with the animals. That is where the money needs to go, and not necessarily only about the big landowners who are not necessarily the producers.
And with that, at the end, I will just quickly, as always, give you a little Danish proverb. I promised to give you that as a little insight into how we think as Danes and how we interpret things. Today we talked a lot about food security, and also right now, with a few of us here very eager to go for lunch. I think it's a fitting Danish proverb today is the one which is basically about how having enough food gives us peace of mind. And it goes like this: Når maven er fuld, er hjertet glad, which can be directly translated into something like a full tummy makes for a happy heart. So with that, thanks for this presser, and have a great lunch.
Thank you. Bye.